Hey guys. Hey guys. Hey guys. Why does it feel like it's been so long since we've done this?
Because we recorded relatively early last week.
And we're recording very
We're
late
recording
this week.
very late this week because I've been ill, and I'm probably going to make some gross noises.
We'll all forgive you.
You can tell that I have a few extra decibels on the bottom register of the old voice substitute.
Today's jobbo is we're taking
It's curtains for San Francisco.
A joke I already made.
Yes, but I wanted to recap it.
It's, I was proud of it.
It was enjoyable.
Okay.
All right,
guys,
so
I gotta tell you
get
something.
this over with. Yeah.
Something that has been very special to me for the past 7 years has come to an end. And while it hasn't always been everything I've wanted it to be, it's definitely held a place in my heart. And I would say that more often than not, it's been worthwhile. And that thing, of course, is Dark Souls. I mean Homestuck. I mean Dark Souls. I mean
Dark Souls isn't over, is it?
Well, yeah. This
is the final installment.
Yeah.
Is that word of God? We're done.
Yeah, that's what they say anyway.
Oh my God.
Who knows if it's true?
I mean, it certainly wasn't true when Hussey said it about Homestuck. So
we're gonna spend this episode on guess which one of those things.
Yeah. Well, actually, more specifically, we're going to spend this episode saying good things about Homestuck.
Yes.
The point of this episode of Trucks is that we are going to explain why Homestuck was as important to us as it was, and we're going to avoid all of the negative things that one could say about Homestuck. And the first person to say a negative thing about Homestuck gets the Boston Crab.
Do they really, though?
I said that on my blog, which means that it's true.
Well, but we can't deliver a Boston Crab over the Trucks cast.
I think that people will find the audio very compelling.
Oh no. I never agreed to this.
Well, I'm between you and the door, my friend.
Okay.
And possibly contagious.
Homestuck. How many of y'all know about Homestuck? I feel like a few of y'all probably started listening to these well after Homestuck was relevant.
Yeah, and probably, if you don't know, it's a webcomic that was started 7 years ago by a guy named Andrew Hussey. He previously did a comic called Problem Sleuth, which I liked, which is why I was reading him. And then about a year, I want to say, into Homestuck, it stopped being a
Only a year?
About a year and a half.
Wow.
It stopped being a sort of a niche webcomic and became kind of a social phenomenon.
Yes.
Among
tweens,
basically. Yeah, he hit upon that old Harry Potter magic formula where he came up with a bunch of different categories to categorize humans into, and
multiple methods for
colors,
sorting
and
yourself into
he invented a whole new system of shipping. And
that's true.
Yeah, and whether it was planned or not, you cannot say that he did not succeed in checking all of the boxes of overnight YA success. And he was an overnight YA success, not on the same scale as Harry Potter, but...
Or even somehow on the scale of Undertale.
I think the whole Google Analytics thing is a little bit...
Oh, is it misleading?
I feel like it's a little bit misleading, but... Because Undertale is not really a YA success.
That's
in the
true.
same way Undertale is a very much a video game that was construed and critiqued and tossed around in the video game universe.
Yeah.
While also having a YA fandom, but Homestuck was a success in the same way that Harry Potter was a success, just on a much smaller scale.
Right.
But depending on where you hung out on the internet, it became inescapable for a while.
Yeah.
And then it sort of peaked, and the author took a couple of really long hiatuses that corresponded with him starting a Kickstarter to make a video game of Homestuck, which he is still
presumably still
making, or so we were told.
And there's an interesting story there, which doesn't probably need to be told here.
I would say that it is not entirely relevant to the stated aim of the fucking occasion. Nobody's been in the Boston Crab yet. This is smooth sailing so far.
We got to dial back to a time. We've got to travel back in time.
We've got to travel
here.
back to a time, but picture. I mean, Homestuck is how Josh and I met, because Josh was involved in an online community of Homestuck enthusiasts.
Yes, true.
Which included a friend of mine from college, and thus we ended up meeting up when said friend visited New York, and I'm
wearing a Homestuck shirt right now.
Josh is wearing a Homestuck shirt right now. There are a couple of them in my closet.
It just occurred to me,
which I don't actually wear, but
mine is mostly mistaken for a Punisher shirt.
That is true. Josh is wearing the character shirt of the character who he portrayed.
Yes,
in his online Homestuck community.
We did it was a fun time.
Yeah.
The circumstances which lead to an occasion like that are very difficult to engineer. But if you ever have a chance to riff on movies in character, I highly recommend it.
I wasn't there for that, and I slightly regret not having been there for that. But regardless, it was a notable thing because it's, for me, it was the first fandom that happened while I was looking at something. For me,
yeah,
and probably the last. I don't think that the particular set of circumstances that caused something that I had been into for a while to become something that, like, a ravening horde of teenage cosplayers were into.
Right. It was completely unexpected. Like, we
both
both came into Homestuck
profoundly disoriented.
We both came into Homestuck through Problem Sleuth, which is a much more straightforwardly funny thing.
Yeah, it's comedy. And maybe this is the moment where we jump into talking about what it was about Homestuck that made us like it.
At first, it was the same thing that made Problem Sleuth good,
which is that it's really funny.
Yes, but it had a very specific brand of humor, which I might best describe as it riffs on adventure games, but in a very strange way. Like, it's not just jokes about video games, right?
Right.
It takes the
there are a few of those.
Yes, of course. But, like, what it did was it took the kind of mental models you build while playing adventure games in particular, with their arcane collections of objects and interactions between those objects, and just made that how the plot worked.
Yeah.
And
and to its credit, stuck to that.
Yeah.
With
mostly. Oh no, is that a negative thing to say?
No,
I'd say that
because that's neither a positive or a negative thing.
Yes, the focus shifted as it went on, but for a good long time it stuck with that, like, to an absurd degree, to a point where, like, the stakes were kind of multiversal in scale, and still, like, every facet of the plot felt like an item in somebody's inventory.
Yes, the grand game of what if, i.e., what if a story was built the way that a video game is built, and the answer may surprise you, and also, but no, I have to abandon that sentence lest I end up in the crab.
Oh no.
So the
try again.
That was the initial thing, right? It was the funny.
Yeah. The funny and the novel.
The funny and the novel, and the fact that this dude was making a webcomic, but also, hey, here's suddenly some music.
Yeah.
In the webcomic.
I think the first time,
here's a little bit of animation.
It was, like, so cute at first.
Yeah.
It was, like, literally the first thing that happened with sound in the comic was, like, it used to be that all the actions the characters took were suggested by users, and there was a piano in the room, and someone suggested that the character should play the piano, and we got a little piano ditty. I meant to say a little panel where John plays the piano, and it was a nice little melody written. Was that one of Toby Fox's?
No. That's the first appearance of Showtime.
Who
by
wrote
Malcolm
Showtime?
Brown.
Oh, I see. But it became a leitmotif much later on, that particular piece of music. And I remember Hussey did a news post at that moment, like, sometimes there will be sound and moving pictures in this. Isn't that fun? And like it was just, it didn't seem like the at first it didn't seem like it was going to be on the scale of what it became. Like I remember the big holy crap, what is this even moment was at the end of Act 1 there was a lengthy animation of what at the time seemed to be a spaceship like flying over post-apocalyptic Earth with dramatic music and like sweeping establishing shots, and it was just that was quite a moment. You remember that? You remember when that happened all of a sudden?
Yeah, and we were like, whoa.
The parameters just seemed to expand infinitely, like from what had been a funny comic about a kid like goofing around in his house with some gameplay mechanics making a mess of things, into like something where the scale was not knowable.
Right. So there was this thing which I've written about, which is a topping of itself that it did every time. It was like, okay, I've done a little music, now here's a little interactive video game. Okay, now here's a full animation. Oh, here's a video game that you can actually walk around and interact with people in. Here's here's that, you know. And in harmony with the expansion of the format, there was the expansion of the plot, which started out, you know, literally confined inside a room and became the size of several universes. And for a good long time, it managed to remain coherent. Longer than anybody suspected or expected, I would say. To the point where it fostered in retrospect, unsustainable belief in the abilities of the author to juggle a billion balls at the same time.
But for a long time, he
managed to keep
did an amazing
so many
job
of them in the air,
and that was
for so long.
That was what was so impressive about it, really. Like we were all okay with the idea that some of these like things that were being introduced were falling by the wayside, because you know that's what adventure games do. You need some red herrings in there, and you know eventually you use that red herring to offer the troll so you can cross the bridge, and that happened so many times in Homestuck. Just the things that people didn't even think could come back came back all the time, and like seemed infinitely significant for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time he claimed, like, people were asking him, do you have like a spreadsheet? Do you have documents to help you keep track of these things? And Hussey claimed, no, it's kind of just all in my noggin, which still reads as an unbelievable claim to me.
I think that, but you know, what happened later, I think, suggests that it was true, that he was dedicating the entirety of his intelligence and attention to keeping all of those balls in the air.
Yeah, and I suppose it makes sense that after he stopped updating as often as he did, that there would be some.
What? We're not going to be able to avoid this. No. The crab is off the table. We're going to.
No. I'm framing it positively.
All right.
I'm saying that I can understand like why a couple of balls might get dropped in this scenario.
Yeah, exactly. Like it would take a man of superhuman attention and intelligence to be able to keep the whole thing going all by himself at the speed with which he had done it, and
this is another thing.
Ultimately, he was not able to do so.
Yeah, we need to put that on the praise pile as well, though. Like the speed at which he kept this thing going.
Yeah, that was the other thing. It was like multiple updates a day, 7 days a week, for months.
It was
at the creative prime of the fucking comic. He literally did nothing else. Yeah. I mean, we wondered how he lived.
Yeah,
you know, it was like It was an extraordinary act of dedication to the work.
Yeah,
you know, which was
straight up admirable.
Yeah, and
it produced
sustained pretty much right up until the end of the main part of the comic.
Yeah,
or the part of the comic which I would say is the part that holds up the best.
And it's
the first 5 acts.
It's not just academic to praise him for working so hard, right? Because it produced the kind of work which could only have resulted from that kind of dedication.
Yeah.
Just a work of nigh obsession.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's a thing of beauty. Thinking back,
Yeah.
there's a lot to enjoy there. It's just.
We haven't even gotten into the characters.
Oh man, we haven't.
Yeah. It's like this is all, fractal plotting and stuff, but really, and the jokes, which were always the thing that kept me coming back. God, the jokes. The thing that, oh God, post the pod. Nope, I'm not going to get crapped.
There were jokes once. That was great when there were jokes.
I loved the jokes. They were my favorite part. Anyway,
what were some funny ones? I can't even remember anymore.
Well, some of them became memes, which persist to this day.
Fucking Sweet Bro and Hella Jeff is Homestuck. I think that for a while, like I warned you about Stairs.
Yeah, it had a life of its own, far beyond the scope of the thing. But regardless, I think one of the things that made it really special was the character writing, which was really great for a long time.
It was.
And there were so many characters, and he still managed to make them sound interesting.
All written in distinct typographical styles of internet chat room speak. And after we got into the dozens of characters, he had to start pulling out some truly made up typing styles. But that was all part of the charm, because he waited until there were actual aliens to do that. Mm-hmm. And that was a good trick, and it vibed with the thematics very well, because the whole thing Homestuck was supposed to be about was, kids on the internet having real friendships.
Yeah, that was a big thing, particularly in the early part of the comic, was about, like, how the internet provided isolated kids with the means to connect meaningfully with others, which seemed like an important point to be making at the time. Perhaps less so these days, but
it's definitely you can see why it resonated.
Yeah, no, it found its audience, because there were a lot of kids like that out there.
Many of whom still credit Homestuck with the circles of friends they enjoy today.
Helping them find their communities on the internet, and so that's an extraordinary service, I feel.
And that that kind of connection forged with your fans leads to a very powerful fan work engine as well.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing is the fandom. Homestuck fandom is unlike any fandom that I've ever encountered. Not.
Why am I backwards?
I mean, that's a really good question.
it was like I was being pulled by a gravity force there.
I'm gonna die.
Isaac is dying. Homestuck is over and Isaac is dying.
We knew this would happen. Yeah.
Dark Souls is over and Josh is dying. It's the end of everything.
Booho, booho.
What? What is that a riff on? Nothing, maybe. Just a funny... Anyway, were we going to keep talking about the characters, or
I do want to keep talking about the characters. We barely got there yet.
Yeah.
But I think that probably the thing that made it feel, even beyond all of the other stuff that we're talking about, the thing that made it feel like personal to me, which may explain the way that occasionally I've been known to react on the internet as if Andrew Hussey murdered my dog, my personal dog.
You're not the only one. Your personal dog
is
as opposed to your professional dog.
Yeah,
I like that very much.
Is that those characters felt both real and new in a way, because he was giving patience and space and compassion to online archetypes that barely got any of that, particularly at the time. The way it was, like, particularly coming out of the sort of the kind of internet community that it came out of, because he was a goon.
I think it technically started on the Penny Arcade forums.
Yeah,
right?
It's like the worst. He was like, all right, this character is a furry.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to deal with that. And
he was a freaky alien furry. Like, it was like, at first glance, it did not look like it was going to be a compassionate portrayal, right? It was definitely for laughs that he was into huge muscular horsemen. And it, like, freaked all the other characters out, and he was sweaty. I guess you meant Jade. But
But yeah,
even so,
but even we were all very sad when Equius died.
Right.
Which is a hell of an accomplishment.
right. Not much was ever made of Jade's fairiness, right? Like she became
Besides
an actual
becoming a
fairy at
literal
one point.
fairy. But not much was made of it. But it was a thing that he dropped in. Like that was sort of that I felt kind of presaged what he did with the trolls.
Yes, exactly. The trolls were really when that kicked into overdrive.
God, when my nose is plugged up and I'm talking about nerdy things, I just want to punch myself in the face because of how my voice sounds. It's internalized nerd hatred.
Yeah,
It's a real thing. If you ever went to middle school,
it's the perfect. No, it's perfect. It's only right that you should sound like that while we're talking about this.
Yeah, it's true.
I meant Jade.
I'm not Bernie Sanders. What are you doing?
I'm not very good at that particular. It's a shame because it's one of my favorite voices. I meant
The Mortimer Snerd voice.
yeah. I meant Jade. I don't know.
Jade, you keep making them from Brooklyn.
I'm not good at it. This is not my talent.
Anyway, so yeah, and like Rosalind was particularly important to both Josh and myself, and because she was like the Lisa Simpson of the crew, except she was also doomed and evil.
Yeah, something like that.
And like in later years, Terezi.
It's Terezi. I never. Right? Yeah, you did do a thing about Terezi.
Yeah. Well, I think I mean, and this maybe is the way to sort of swing into the fandom is like,
I forgot to get my truck inspected.
Oh shit. Perhaps you will be fined heavily, or maybe nobody will notice. Nope.
It cost me $420.
Brutal.
You were gonna say. You were gonna say about.
I was gonna say that I was always a fan of Terezi, but I never really cared about Terezi until I read Urban Anchorite's Terezi, until I read Tang's Terezi.
Right.
There were some really good writers in the Homestuck fandom, and were some really terrible writers in the Homestuck fandom. Oh shit!
Well, that's.
I have to put myself in the box. No, that wasn't being negative about Homestuck.
Homestuck.
That was being negative about certain people who I will not name.
You still have an out. Although, that's debatable, right?
Because there's this porous membrane between the fandom
and
and the comic
it
itself.
continues to be a slightly mysterious trick to me how that was pulled off, because Homestuck is hardly the only piece of fiction to say, but actually this exists in a big infinite multiverse, and everything you can imagine is true.
Right, but it feels
Homestuck's Homestuck's fiction surrounding its multiverse doesn't necessarily support your Old West alternate universe. I don't see any particular way in which that could be a thing. But somehow the attitude surrounding it did become that fan work was especially valid, if you see what I mean.
I think it's because the tenor of the fan work was in part was so in sync with the tenor of the thing. It's like the fans produced.
I'm not sure I'd agree with that.
What
most of my favorite fan work was that which either was very goofy, which was rare, like to match the goofiness of the comic.
Yeah.
More frequently, the good fan work that I saw was like, let's just take this so seriously. Let's do character studies, which is something Homestuck was never interested in. And
I what I meant by that was like in terms of its prolificness,
the infinite compounding nature.
Yeah,
of it.
like the sudden turnaround, the update art idea, where it's like the fandom is moving as fast as he is,
right.
And also in the sheer discursiveness and digressiveness of it.
I remember there was a moment.
And the universal scale.
Speaking of things Hussey said while it was all going down, there was a moment when he said, I used to look at all the fan art, but that's no longer possible. And that was
wow.
What a different time, huh?
There was a time where I tried to look at all the fan art.
Right.
And I just saw those numbers going up and up and up and up.
Yeah.
It was a really weird time, the Act 5 time for me. That was just a really strange time.
Yeah, it was this thing we'd been reading forever, including the previous comic, and just how'd you all get here? I thought this was a comic for like weird older dudes.
And it's like, and I have to say that, like, of the things that of the things that one could be upset about, the idea that, like, Homestuck was taken over by youngsters and is not, it is never something I've ever been even remotely upset about. Because it is added immeasurably to it.
It has. It does create a certain feeling of shame that one has to contend with when saying that they're into Homestuck, because the impression it's easy to give someone with that is that you got into it at the same time as all the tweens, that you were into a tween thing, which isn't something which is bad. I mean, I love Adventure Time.
Yeah,
but
or that you are in it specifically to get opportunities to hang out with tweens. Which
right.
Is, I certainly have seen those stories.
Yeah, but no, it's easy for people who don't know Homestuck to overlook the fact that it was definitely an all ages piece of media.
Yeah, it's not a question that I concern myself with in any of the other, like, childish amusements that I childishly amuse myself with.
No, but it was just particularly profound with this one. I think the image that it has in culture is
and well, the image that it has versus the image that it had, or rather didn't have, or the demographic that it has versus the demographic that it had, and of course the way that Hussey went from interacting with his audience as if we're an audience of peers to interacting with his audience as if we were an audience of unruly children, which is what it was, and the resulting
contempt that bled into his attitude for a while.
It was something.
Yeah.
It was something, like the journey that he went on vis-a-vis his own sudden fame and success and all of that. I think it kind of was. I think it was a big part of what happened to Homestuck. That's always been my.
Careful.
I didn't say what happened.
Just.
I just say that I think that these two things are linked.
Yes.
But anyway, back to so we got the characters, the jokes, the art. I really like Hussey's art style.
Yeah.
I really like Hussey's art. I like the way he draws.
Yeah.
I like the way he draws, and I also like his instinct for collaborators. I will say that, but I like the way Hussey draws.
How about the once upon a time controversial decision to compose Homestuck visually out of easily reusable assets?
I think that his aesthetic has always been efficiency related. Mm-hmm. I think that continues to be true even as his resources expanded.
Yeah.
And I think it was particularly effective in the early days because it heightened the jump between the panels that were clearly like copy pasted, using reusable assets, and then sudden animation, sudden jump into high res, basically, whereas high res as Homestuck ever got.
And that very effective. My favorite part of Homestuck is the part where the story behind why it happened may not be a positive, but I'm not going to talk about that. Instead, I'm just going to talk about the result, which was there was a bit where Andrew Hussey started putting a lot of effort into drawing every panel in a different art style for a little bit.
Yeah.
And like they were all great, they all looked totally different, and they all expressed very different things in very different ways, and that was a moment. Like
that was some of my favorite. Yeah, that particular stretch is prime Homestuck, peak Homestuck, I might say. And I'm saying that like by focusing on the first, on sort of the major Homestuck portion, the first 5 acts. I don't want to say that nothing that happened after that was good either. I've many of my favorite moments in Homestuck happened during the later period, but they're generally my favorite things for different reasons. Which, yeah. This is actually really useful because the things which I am finding that I was hoping to see and which have not come are, I think, in large part a reaction to shift in the focus of the comic, and it's just interesting to think about the things that I used to value in it as opposed to the things that I was looking for in it later on, which are generally not the same things.
Right. And there's an interesting discussion to be
Changing
had.
expectations on part of the author and the audience,
Yes. This maybe is not to defend the ending.
Yeah.
But stories are not their endings, right?
Absolutely.
I do not regret having read Homestuck. Would I recommend that you read it? I don't know. I feel like we're the best people we're talking to right here are people who are angry at Homestuck right now and who, want to remember why they ever liked it. But there must be someone who has, for some reason, listened to all this and has heard us say all these positive things about Homestuck,
And is never
and is like
never
saying,
pulled the trigger.
well, that sounds kind of interesting, I guess.
It's so long.
It's really
It's really long. Not so's Ulysses.
I feel like
it's really long though.
I feel like a big part of why Homestuck worked was that it was happening in the present, right?
Yeah.
It was there was the communal reaction and the communal synthesis
Right.
regarding what was happening.
There was always this discussion in the fandom about archive readers versus
We're frozen. I'm sure it'll recover.
yeah.
Ooh.
Whoa.
No, this has happened before. I'm sure we'll recover.
So this is our hiatus. It's a shame that it happened quite so close to the end. It's really difficult to know how we'll regain any momentum, given the short amount of time that we have left to work with. Particularly if over the course
We're back.
Thank God that didn't last for a year and a half.
You were saying...
Anyway.
what were you saying? Do you remember what you were saying?
Yeah, I was saying... oh boy, I don't know, man. I think that I might have forgotten a bunch of the threads of the narrative that I was talking about. And we've moved on to other considerations, and so I'm just going to have to kind of phone it. Maybe I can get Monica to come in and sit here and do the rest of it for me while I...
oh no, we're going negative. Oh no!
All right, Josh, put me in the crab.
I don't know
That's the only way out of it.
How do I put you in the crab? How do I-
Don't actually pause the game.
Well, I'm not gonna let the truck roll on while I put you in the crab. Do you want me to? Hi.
Hi.
What were you saying?
Yes. None of that happened. Oh yes, I was saying that. It's certainly. I was saying that the conflict between archival and serial readership turns out in the end to have been a bit of a red herring, I think, because it's hard to imagine people going back and reading the whole thing top to tail.
Right.
Now
It wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, it's like it's such a monolith that it just becomes this object, and like there are volumes of it in print, and it's like all of it will never ever be in print,
Right.
because it's just completely unworkable to imagine doing that. And so it'll be this experience for people who are sort of curious, and then it'll be the slippery slope for them, and it'll feel like the experience of the serial reader, I think, if you get into it at that point.
Really?
I mean,
I feel like without it all, without the whole fandom happening around you.
it's just like it's such
the events in the comic were interrelated with what was happening in the fandom, oftentimes very intimately.
yeah.
I'm in the wrong lane.
Well, that's a problem, isn't it?
The other thing I wanted to talk about, the other thing I wanted to praise Homestuck for, was that it kind of, and this got on my mind because of a thing that just happened on Tumblr, but it did have kind of a casual disregard for the conventions of narrative, right? Mm-hmm. The conventions of characterization, we touched on that earlier, but also just it felt truly like anything could happen. It flipped genres all the time. It killed characters in an almost gleeful fashion, which would normally be bad, but in a strange way was good, for a while. Mm-hmm. And what's the point I'm making? Just that was cool, I guess. There was a point.
It was an experience. It's hard to explain it to people who weren't there. I guess that's sort of the point that I was talking about. It's like,
right.
I don't think that I think that a person, I don't think that an archival like an archival reading of Homestuck can in the end be a successful experience.
Yeah.
It can only be an academic or a curious or a...
You would see some good jokes.
You would.
But you should just go back and read Problem Sleuth for that.
Really?
Problem Sleuth was better.
It's possible that Homestuck will forever just be for those of us who had to endure it.
I'll be curious if anyone does start reading Homestuck now that it is over and get all the way through it. I'd be very curious to hear what that experience was like.
Yeah. One more Homestuck live blogger here at the end of time. That would be a lovely thing.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Do you like Homestuck? Let us know in the comments. If you liked the video, please subscribe. Tell your friends about the channel. Don't read Homestuck, it sucked. The
Boston
ending,
Crab!
The ending
Boston
was
Crab!
really bad. No, you already did this.
Yeah, you're right, absolutely.
The ending was... What happened?
Oh god, So, what happened?
Oh,
You want me to explain the ending to you?
No, I know what happened. Just...
The author checked out is what happened. I mean...
There is a claim that this was the idea from the beginning, that this was how it was always going to end.
I can absolutely believe that was... This basically was the idea from the beginning.
But there was definitely a part there where even the author seemed to forget what was happening and what mattered in the comic, and like just things languished in an eternal sludge.
Mm-hmm.
And then just after a while of that, it became ending time all of a sudden. Just everything very conveniently fell in place. Like so much. For 2 years, the comic was just moving chess pieces around the chessboard in an infinite stalemate, which is an image that the comic had actually like invoked at one point intentionally. And oh my god!
I mean, the things that are bad about the comic all seem to. There's an argument that you can make that just about everything in the comic that's bad is on purpose.
Yeah.
And is saying something about narrative or trying to invoke the feeling of being stuck in a never-ending, boring shit show of a narrative.
But the ending that we got even seems to invalidate that reading.
Essentially, it does, because...
It plays as though something big and dramatic had just happened.
Yeah.
That we were all supposed to care about. There's no way I can park this. Can I park right here? Yes. Thank God.
Yep.
I copped out at the end, just like Andrew Hussey.
Someone's got to go in the crowd. we completely failed in our mission there at the end. It's that goddamn hiatus. It just fucked everything up. Yeah. My genuine take on what the stakes were supposed to be at the end was that it's, I feel like the idea is all about the thing that the characters kept hitting there at the very end, which is the transcending of the idea of a personal A to B arc. Right. And you instead have to think of the collective arc, as in, I think there's a real chance that like every character that we ever seen is in this comic has essentially sacrificed themselves to create the happy people that we saw inside the bubble there at the very end, that have a world that works slightly better, and that was the idea, that all of the stress and strain was in aid of the creation of the next thing, i.e. the Homestuck video game, which will be less shitty. Unenthusing.
But in the end,
Yeah,
I'm glad Homestuck happened.
I am too.
My life wouldn't be the same without it, genuinely.
Yeah, well, we certainly wouldn't be sitting here.
No, yeah. This is a question we've raised on Trucks in the past, but this is maybe the last chance we'll have to do it again, which is that I genuinely have no idea. You're destroying my sculpture.
Sorry.
It's fine. I've been meaning to make it into something else anyway, but
I don't know why you decided to do. It's incredibly appropriate. That was an incredibly appropriate gesture to have made. I'm kind of delirious.
That's okay.
This is the first excellent score I think you've had in American Truck Simulator.
I wonder. Maybe you're right about that. Curtains delivered. Curtains delivered.
You were going to say something and I interrupted.
I think I got the point across, which is just that it's a genuine mystery where this timeline would have gone if Homestuck had never happened. It would be absolutely, completely different.
Yeah, it was a seismic influence in my life and the lives of many, many people who I know.
Yeah.
Which means that it was great.
Yeah. You know,
I think
there's no...
definitionally it means that it was great.
True.
Good, perhaps not, but great, certainly.
Yep. All right, gang.
All right, bye, all.
Bye.